Hi everyone. In this video, let's see in Swift language what are properties and how we can define the properties and set the default values and set and modify the default values, and what are different types of properties we have. So properties are associated values with a particular instance of a class or a structure or an enumeration, and there are different types of properties in Swift language like stored properties, lazy stored properties, and computed properties. In this video we'll discuss what are stored properties. So let me take a model. Let's say I'm taking a structure. So here uh, if it is this, we call it as a constant stored property. This value cannot be modified. It can be, we can set a value at the time of definition or in the initialization, and after that we cannot change its value. And also a description which is a variable stored property whose value can be modified. So this is a constant stored property, this is a variable stored property. See, these stored properties are stored in the memory as part of the instance, so these values are also stored in the memory. So coming to giving an initial value at the time of definition or at the time of initialization, there is a difference if it is a constant stored property or a variable stored property. For example, let's see, for example, I'm having a struct which is a value type, we know it. I have a constant stored property called name. I can give a default value, an initial value, something like this, and as it is a constant stored property, as I have already given a value to it, we cannot modify it even during the initialization. Why? Because it is a value type, I have already assigned a value. So if I try to give some another value during initialization also, it will give a compile time error, which is immutable value self.name may only be initialized once. That means you already initialized it and it is a let. In the initialize, that means it already have got a value. As it is constant, this cannot be initialized inside. If not, if it is a variable stored property, of course this value we can change it in the initialization, as well as outside also you can create an instance of a product and we can change the name value. So this is with the value type uh, for a struct, and for example, let's say I have a let and I have already given the name, and I have a description. We're only talking about the value types, which are structures. We'll talk about reference types, reference type properties in a while, which is also a string. I'm not giving an initial value, and the initialization also I'm not going to set anything. But the moment I create an instance, see, for name it is not giving any we know that structures are having default initializers where if we have not given any initial value in the initialization, it will create automatically for us. Description is not having any initial value, it has given us this description parameter. In this, let me sum something. So after that, if I try to, of course this name I cannot edit it as discussed. If we try to edit it, it will again give the build error. Why? Because name is a let constant. Okay, description is a var. Now I go and change it. Description I try to assign. Now this is also not possible with the value types. Why? Because it is saying cannot assign to property p is a let constant. Now you may be wondered, description is a variable stored property, why I cannot change the value? Only in the initialization you can set a value, you cannot change the value. Why? Because the instance that you have taken is a let constant. That means if it is a value type which is a struct, though you are having variable parameter, the moment you take a constant, all these stored properties also will become constant stored properties. That means you cannot assign it. If you want to assign it, we have to make it a mutable instance. Now we can assign description. Now it will not give any build errors or something. So that's the tricky part in value types, where the moment you create a constant instance of a value type, though you're having variable stored properties, you cannot modify them. Now let's see the same how reference types will behave. Let me take the same stuff, where string, and let me take the description, which is also a string. And having said that, I forgot one thing to tell here. For example, I have this as an optional. Now if this is an optional, now in the initialization I can change it. Why? Because it's an optional, so it's not having any initial value, as it is having chances of having the nil. Now here I can let me comment it for you. I'm sorry about that. Here I can change its value. Why? Because initially I have given it as initial optional. Now in the initialization I want to change its property. This is possible. If not at the time of definition, if I'm not giving any value, this optional value can be set here. As I have initialized, as I'm not going with the default initializer, it is asking like all the stored properties should have a value by the time initialization ends. That's what the error was trying to say. Okay, and if you're not defining this, that's okay, as we know that value types will be having a default initializer, where if I do it now it will give me an option for both this and this. Why? Because earlier we have got it for only description. Now it will give me both name and description. Why? Because name is an option. Yeah, that's how value types stored properties, whether they are constant stored properties or variable stored properties, that's how they behave. That's how we can give the default values, either while defining it or in the initialization. And whether it is any model, by the time initialization get completes, all the stored properties should be having a value. If they are optional, that's a different case. That's fine. You will not get any compile time errors. So value types we have seen, and I hope we have got some picture how value types stored properties will work. Now see how reference types will work. Now so unlike value types, classes will not be having default initializers, so we need to write our own init function. So that's what it is saying. You give either default values or write an initialization. Now I'll go with my own initialization. Now I have written my statement, but only name I have initialized, description I have not initialized, but it will give the same error saying written from initializer without initializing all stored properties. Self.name, it is clear, it got an value, but description, initialization is completed, but you have not given any initial value for a variable stored property, so it should not be. Now description also we need to give something. If not here, if you don't want to, if you want to have only something here, at least here you should give an initial value so that it will not complain. That means it will take empty as a default value, that means initialized value, and it will not complain. Now I'm taking a constant instance. Let's say I'm creating an instance of a class. It will not the name something I'll give. Now like in value types, description I can change it. Why? Because it is a variable stored property. and name I cannot change it. Why? Because iterate constant. And you might have observed, though it is a constant instance that I have taken of employee, description I was able to edit it. This is because employee is a class and classes are reference type, though it is a constant instance that I have taken. I am able to edit the description because classes are reference types. And having said that, though it is a constant instance, only the variable stored properties can only be modified. So uh, this is the basics of properties, and we have discussed stored properties, how they behave for value types and reference value types and reference types, and stored properties, they occupy the memory. They'll be stored along with the instance as part of the instance of a structure or structure or classes. And in Swift, only classes and structure can have the stored properties, though enums are also models. Enums are also value types, but enums cannot have stored properties. They can only have a computed properties, which we'll discuss in the future videos. I hope this video is helpful. Thank you.